Very warm welcome. First of all, I want to thank McMarvin organization for giving me this opportunity. At the onset, let me wish that all of you and your family members are safe and completely healthy. Being among the company of such a talented women inspires me to take even more efforts towards prevention of child abuse. I want to start with a quote of South African past President Nelson Mandela. Safety and security don't just happen, they are the result of collective conscious and public investment. We owe our children in our society a life free of violence and fear. First, let's quickly review what child abuse actually is. Child abuse is a physical, sexual, and psychological neglect of a child or a children, especially by a parent or a caregiver. Child abuse may include any act or failure to act by a parent or a caregiver that results in actual or potential harm to a child and occur in a child's home or in the organizations, schools, or communities around them the child interacts with. The term child abuse is often used interchangeably, although some researchers make a distinction between them, treating a child abuse as an umbrella term to cover neglect, exploitation, and trafficking. As of 2006, World Health Organization, which is WHO, distinguishes 4 types of child abuse: physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional, that's what, psychological abuse, and neglect. With this kind of child abuse, child maltreatment, it results in immediate adverse physical effects, but it is strongly associated with the developmental problems and with many chronic physical and psychological effects, including subsequent ill health, including high rates of chronic conditions, high risk behaviors, and shortened lifespan. Child abuse is an international phenomenon. Poverty and substance abuse are common social problems associated with child abuse, which are the effects of child abuse. Throwing some light how we can prevent this maltreatment. In India, the primary child protection provisions are found in the Juvenile Justice Act 2015. Chapter 6 of the Act lays out of the procedure in relation to a child in need of care and protection, and Chapter 9 describes certain offenses against child, including cruelty. Child sexual abuse laws in India have been enacted as a part of the child protection policies of India. The Parliament of India has passed the Protection of Children Against Sexual Offences Bill 2011 regarding child sexual abuse on 22nd May 2012. There have been many calls for more stringent laws. The Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012 is one of the Indian government's most progressive laws. The Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012 is one of the India's most progressive laws to combat sexual violence against children. Let's talk about more acute steps for prevention of child abuse, in which as a community we should take. In India, the key public approach should be to prevent child maltreatment and to ensure that all children and families have access to school, basic health care, nutrition, besides supportive environment, social welfare, and juvenile justice systems. India is now seeing a transitional period with the prevalence of child marriage declining from 47% girls married before age 18 in 2005-2006 to 27% in 2015 and 16. That's quite good. Progress has been made in generating social awareness, enhancing legislation, and nurturing action towards ending violence, abuse, and exploitation of children. But more needs to be done to ensure the survivors and the families benefit from sensitive, timely, and efficient protection against services. As a security, we can play a major role in enhancing two missing elements of the government action are prevention and rehabilitation of survivors of child abuse and exploitation. We should focus on counseling, more justice programs, support for school continuation, and restorative policies and schemes. And social protection should be the most prioritized. We should join hands with government, civil society, organization, NGOs, and other partners in building community and families where children are safe and free of abuse and exploitation, and ensure that children remain in an economically stable family homes and get the opportunity to go to school and be educated. I would like to end my speech with a very relevant quote to this topic. There can be no keener revelation of society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. Thank you and namaskar.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for your opinion. If you don't know who is Anar Mehta, she is the Chief of Women Wing, India and US at the Indian Golf Circuit, and she's also a founder of a couple of NGOs like Srishti Bharat and a digital media platform called Hello Umania. And she is also an active member of a couple of trusts and forums. So it was nice having you, ma'am, and we have noted it down, whatever you just mentioned, and we will keep those feedback, and that will definitely help in our research. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you will be there to just listen to all the other speaker as well. So I will request Mansi Dholakia ji to please share your opinion on the topic.
Hi,
And
McMarvin.
before that, let me introduce Mansi to all of you. She is a global mental health ambassador and as well as international speaker. And she's also an advisor and on the board of trustee with some of the organizations in the United States and the United Kingdom. So Mansi, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Privileged to be a part of this panel here with, beautiful women out here talking about real issues and how to handle them. Congratulations, McMarvin, on creating such a platform and developing research and, which is going to empower societies. It's not about empowering one particular school, one particular region, or one particular state. It's about empowering the mindset, which is our motto as well. So like you introduced, I'm the founder and CEO of GMHA, which is Global Mental Health Association. It's established in the United States, and we work towards raising mental health awareness around the world. Currently, we are established in United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Middle East, as well as India. So in India, we work towards various educative initiatives. And today I'm here to talk about child abuse and prevention. McMarvin, may I request you to allow me to share my screen? I've got a little small PowerPoint together to, put things in perspective.
Yes, that will be wonderful. Please go ahead.
Thank you. You'll have to enable screen sharing. I think it's not letting me share my screen. Yeah, thank you.
Can you share the screen now? Okay, you can.
You can see it now, right? Okay, great, thank you. Child abuse prevention goals. Our company and myself, we are more about, prevention is better than cure. So I'm not going to talk about the measures later on that what we can take. I'm sure we have an esteemed panel here and somebody would be talking about it anyway. But I have chosen today to speak about how we can, as a society, prevent child abuse completely. So my focus today is on that. What is child abuse? As the previous esteemed panelist, she defined child abuse in a very lovely way. So I'm not going to, repeat the definition here. Statistics, when we look at it, in India, where a staggering 53% of the children, which is the highest in the world, are being, admitted to being sexually harassed, according to a 2017 report. Child abuse is still a taboo topic, which is brushed under the carpet. I think a lot of mental well-being topics in India have been a taboo. Thanks to the pandemic, now the awareness is raising. People have actually, started willing to actually start talk about things. So that is a good thing. The major reason for child abuse is lack of awareness. How to deal with child abuse. People don't know what to do with it. For example, if you talk about real issues, when parents, communicate with their children, a child comes up and says that I was, touched inappropriately, or there's somebody who's trying to make me uncomfortable, whether they belong to the family, whether they belong to anybody out there in the world. Parents don't know how to answer to their child. They don't know how to cope with that. If we talk about the police, for example, there's a police case, and so police are the first people who come in contact with the children. Are our police equipped to deal with domestic abuse cases with children? What kind of training do they get? They are also stumped sometimes. They don't know how to deal with things. We have personally interviewed a lot of people from around the world when we were trying to, raise all these initiatives and awareness in India. So I personally know that it's very difficult for people, that they just don't know how to cope with things. um, Another major reason in India is, cultural disability, which is the embarrassment in the society. 90% of the children know their abuser very well. These are the statistics. And so this leads to a close-minded mentality, of the family. They don't talk about it. They'll just brush it off. They just try to quieten their child. So doing this gives strength more to the abuser, because he knows that, he has the power over the child. And that is not a good idea, because the child is then losing faith in their own family. Causes and impact of child abuse in India. Child rights protection, exploitation, they are all linked to poor socioeconomic conditions in a large population. So all of this, again, illiteracy of parents is another huge, challenge for NGOs or for organizations like McMarvin when they are working towards it, and when they are trying to kind of, do any kind of research or whatever out there in the real world. These are the real challenges, real issues that you deal with. If people are not aware, how are you going to address the cause? If we talk about impact, there is both physical and emotional trauma that is related to child abuse. The immediate impact as well as the long-term impact. Both are, it's lifelong. The physical trauma, the emotional trauma, the psychological trauma, everything is kind of lifelong, and it's very hard to deal with that. Research has also indicated direct neural impact from abuse, as seen in the emotional lobe, memory center, decision making center, and other brain functioning areas. As adults, victims of child abuse are more vulnerable to mental health trauma. I've just written some practical examples here because I'm very fond of, relating things to real life situations. I think the audience can very well understand that where we are coming from. I had a friend once, these are real examples I'm talking about. So I had a friend once who was shut in her bathroom all her, during her childhood years, because that is the way her mother knew how to punish her. If she wasn't, doing some homework, or if she wasn't getting her grades right, etc. Now, when she grew up, she became claustrophobic. So all that inner spaces all the time remaining inside that. She went through therapy in her adult years. She's still going through therapy, but it's not helping her overcome, the things that she went through then. This is the reason I'm a very big advocate of prevention rather than cure, because something which you have broken cannot be repaired in the same way. So why not work towards something that, that it should not break in the first place at all? Another example, So I had a friend, and her parents were, abusers. They used to shout at each other. There was a lot of violence in the house, etc. And but after she grew up, we lived together actually for a while. Myself and my friend, she was a colleague. Anytime any neighbors would shout out loud, she would jump as an adult, as a 30-year-old, right? She could not go through that trauma. She could not be in the same room if people were shouting at each other. Her hands would tremble. She would go through feelings of anxiety. She would start taking pills, popping pills, because she didn't know how to cope with that. So again, no amount of therapy helps, abolish this in a complete way. It will only help you cope with it. So these are some such stories, relatable examples, what happens to victims of child abuse, and how it has long lasting effects in adulthood as well. How violence affects children, this is one of my favorite domestic wheels, because very well identifies each single element in here. McMarvin, sorry, I know we are short on time, so I'm going to try and rush through.
It's completely all right. You have compiled very well.
Thank
We are
you.
enjoying it, to be honest.
Thank you. So this is the domestic abuse wheel, where how violence affects children. There are elements in here. I would encourage everybody out there, take a printout, have a look, and read up about it. There is a lot to learn from here as well, because emotional abuse, isolation, intimidation, sexual abuse, threatening children, intimidating them. There are a lot of things in here which we can learn about. So this is my favorite kind of something in my mind all the time, that are parents the culprits here, or they are the victims? Now what our system is doing all they can, but unless the society is empowered, will we ever achieve any tangible outcomes? Because a multilateral approach is required in this regard, and the onus lies with the state governments, the police department, judicial system, medical fraternity, to implement the act with urgency and to approach these cases with urgency, empathy, and compassion. Are parents the culprit or the victim? Now, if parents themselves are not aware how to deal with their kids when they come up, with such questions or with some cases or whatever, should we really blame the parents? How can we as leaders empower societies and try and give them a perspective? Why don't we teach parents how to become a parent? I mean, have you heard of any classes where they go before having a child? No, there isn't. Nothing like this exists in society. Do you know why? Because everybody is just thought that, oh, you should be born with this. These are some things that you learn from inside probably your mother's womb, which is such a wrong conception. Is anyone taught how to be a good parent? There are so many things which are just expected out of the individual. These expectations of the societies, are the biggest hindrance in progress of individuals. Apart from academics, a lot of resilience, patience, common sense is expected out of people, and that is what emotional intelligence is. But is it taught? You are supposed to just know it. So unfortunately, not everyone knows what to do. And that is not a crime. It is unawareness that leads to such incidents where parents are left with no choice, but they beat up their kids, they shout at them because they don't know how to deal with difficult children. They are not taught that. That is the problem. The 5 P's of child abuse are prevention, paramountcy, partnership, protection, parental responsibility. Who can step in and help here? According to me, I think we need to empower parents, first of all, because they are the first, people who are in contact with their children all the time. So we as society really need to empower parents and teach them that how they can teach their children about maintaining boundaries. Boundaries is such a huge important topic of emotional intelligence, which needs to be taught. And active listening. Listening skills, again, is a part of emotional intelligence. Parents don't know how to be a listener. They are just there to, if a child speaks, I've heard so many parents, they'll just cut off their child in the middle and say that, okay, I know where you're going with this, and I'll just, give my opinion on this and shut you up, and that, we are done for the day. All these skills we need to teach the parents. Now, when an abuser is named by the child, you don't need to justify that is not the person you know. You need to realize that the person that you thought you knew wasn't that person after all. So you need to stand with your child. So these things need to be taught to the parents. The society needs to be empowered in a holistic way. Self-aware, empathy, active listening, communication, all of these skills which emotional intelligence teaches you about is very, very important. It requires community effort to eradicate the stigma and protect our children. So these are some of the responses which matters. I personally do feel that, how you respond to your children when they come up to you and say something is very, very important part of their development. And trust me, they are going to remember this their entire lives. Whether you think that, okay, right now I'm just going to say this and forget about it, that is not the case with children. What is emotional intelligence and how it can empower the society? I am a big EI advocate. Um, to let my audience know here, I've suffered through anxiety and depression for more than 10 years in my life. And emotional intelligence has been a massive savior to me in my life. Emotional intelligence is the basic understanding of human emotions and of all of those around you. It's about understanding emotions, it's about managing the emotions, it's about listening to people. Our community needs to become more self aware and empathetic. EI will empower the society in a holistic way moving forward. Teaching EI to parents, teachers, and students is one way to move forward, especially when you are dealing with, preventative measures for child abuse. Parents need to learn about making their children a priority and not bind themselves in a predetermined mindset of society, which forces them to remain quiet about things that are not right. Children need to learn about boundaries. Learning to say no is a major portion of that to anyone that they don't feel comfortable with being around. Teachers need to be empowered with EI so they can help difficult kids better. They can get to the root cause of the issues, and teachers are in contact with the children as much as, parents are as well. I think so they are a very, very important part of the society, which are always, overlooked upon. So they are something which we need to take into account as well. Self-awareness is very powerful. It is a skill which can be taught. Emotional intelligence can be taught. It's not something that you are just born with. So self-awareness is the ability to see yourself clearly and objectively through reflection and introspection. Let me put this in, very easy words. If you are more self-aware, if you are more aware of your emotions, you will become more aware of your surroundings. You will become more aware of what your children are trying to tell you, even through their body language. And there won't be need for too many words to be spoken about. For children, when they are more self-aware, they'll be able to protect themselves in a better way. If they are in company of somebody who is trying to threaten them, they will know that before the thing actually happens. So self-awareness can actually act as a very, very big protective barrier, and it's a very powerful tool of emotional intelligence. Compassion, empathy, and building self-respect will build an empowered mindset in the society. I think empathy is one another skill which really needs to be taught to, I think, each and every individual out there. I mean, empathy is something which, you are listening with the ears of another. You are reading with the eyes of another. You're just putting yourself in another person's shoes. That is very, very important, because justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who did actually suffer. And this can only be achieved through empathy. The more we talk about things, the more easier it is for our kids to talk about things. I think awareness is a major part of this campaign. This is my little favorite thing which I've put out here to show someone how you care. What is love? So L is listen deeply with an open heart. This especially goes out to parents and teachers out there who are in touch with the kids. Observe their body like, this must be really hard. Or whenever any child is talking to you about something that they are suffering through or that they are not able to communicate properly. So, and last thing is empower themselves, empower them to empower themselves. So this is a little acronym which I've put together. Lastly, I would just like to end this by saying that people ask that how can a person, abuse a child? And I would like to ask that how can so many good people out there not do anything about it? So we have a responsibility towards our children. So let us all do more and let us all raise our voice. Let us come forward and break barriers to talk about it. I'm a huge advocate of all mental well-being initiatives. On my LinkedIn account, I speak about a lot of things related to life, related to well-being of the society, of our children, of our teachers, and a lot of work we do in the education system as well. More than anything, we need our children to feel that it's okay to talk about things. Nothing is shameful, especially when it comes to their well-being and safety. So I would just like to end this over here. And thank you so much for listening to me so patiently. And I'm sorry I've taken a lot of your time.
No, it's let me to be honest with you, it was very good because whatever you have just presented, it's quite close to our solution. I will definitely show you at the end of the video, and sorry, end of the session, and I will request all of you to please be in this session till the end, because whatever Mansi just said about emotional intelligence, because we are an artificial intelligence company, there is not so much a difference. The difference is only machine. Intelligence is the same, either it's
Yeah.
an emotional or artificial.
Yeah.
So because our solution is mixed of EI and AI. EI means emotional
Yeah.
intelligence and AI means artificial intelligence. And you will definitely going to, I will say, love it. I will take that acronym from you,
Yeah.
and we are going to show you, explain you, and you guys definitely love it. So thank you so much, Mansi. It was, I think you have invested a lot of time, to compile those slides. So it was wonderful. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you so much. Thank you so much. No, it was a pleasure. And because we are working in emotional intelligence, this is exactly something we are trying to bring into the schools and universities across the country right now.
So
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
so no, this definitely made more sense to me in a lot of ways. This is the first time actually I'm speaking about child abuse. I've never had an opportunity to be on a platform or to talk about it before. But even while compiling these slides, I actually realized that how much of a big role emotional intelligence can play, into this. So the way we are also trying to kind of build a holistic approach, because we are teaching AI to teachers, students, and parents. That is the holistic approach that we want to have, because empowering just one person does not help. We need to empower the entire mindset, and it's a hugely challenging task, but the only way is to move forward. So thank you, McMarvin, for providing this platform for me to speak, and thank you everyone for listening.
Yes, so yeah, so I agree with you, and we will talk after that. We will talk after the session definitely. So thank you so much. And now the next, I will invite Dr. Pooja Bedi. She is a doctor by profession, and also has authored many books. If I am aware of it, she also does talk shows as guest on All India Radio. So please, and she was one of the first joinee of this webinar. She joined very early in the beginning. So I will request her to please share your opinion on the topic.
I sincerely appreciate for the opportunity, Mr. Sonu, and greetings to all the wonderful ladies who are doing the commendable job, especially in this particular field. And special thanks to my LinkedIn friend Mansi Dholakia. I myself is quite a promoter of emotional intelligence and empathy. So I just want to start the talk with one experience that I had recently with my daughter. My daughter, she's 11 years old, and being from a Fauji and or you can say army family background, we tend to see many faces and we tend to interact with many different people. The house health is always different, so there are always new people coming in. So foreigners are kind of part of personality to us. But let me share specifically Mansi. My daughter did a project where she painted 20 odd paintings. She sold them to a completely unknown circle where she was not aware of who the people she's selling it to, and she was able to sell, and then the amount collected was credited into the account of a orphanage which is based in Manipur. Now the first point here is not to teach my daughter about empathy, it is the second point, but the first priority was that she should have a positive approach for rejection as well. This is such a crucial element when we start teaching our kids about the empathy. I personally feel if you cannot accept the rejections in your early childhood, you cannot accept the bigger rejections that are going to come in your life for sure later on. So it's a very crucial element. Rejection can lead to revengefulness later on in several cases. Mental health issues, definitely in many, many, many more cases, which are unfortunately overshadowed by self, by family, by society, due to lack of support, awareness, too many factors that Mansi also discussed about. So it's very crucial that we start working on empathy first, start at your own home, start to educate your own children, start to educate yourself, people around you. There's nothing wrong if you're raising a voice. It's absolutely fine. Some people may be offended, but ultimately, at the back of your head, when you're sleeping in the night, you know you have done something good. So it's very, very crucial for any child abuse case, for any prevention talk, or any mental health issue related issues, we must focus on the initial development of the sign and symptoms that are very clear cut shown by the individual. So when we hear the word specifically being mother of two, and it's I feel so disgruntled when I get to hear so many news every day, full of only many 50% of the news are basically of the child abuse. It's very disheartening. Even if the things are happening in the neighborhood, I have not seen people coming out and actually supporting. I have been doing it. So you can say probably this is why I'm sitting here today, because when you tend to do something for the society, you see some change, maybe not the drastic one. I'm not that a big person, but maybe a smaller change that comes, and that change will bring more change. So this is such a crucial topic, and I'm very thankful to McMarvin for giving me this opportunity. And I request Mr. Sonu, can I please share the 4 PowerPoint slides today?
Yes, you definitely can, and you don't need to ask me, because you can definitely say.
Right. So here my 4 simple slides are, which I would like to share with all. So my friend Mansi has covered a lot of points from here, but these are precisely made up of my own experience and whatever research I could do. I always feel there's a similarity between the pre and the post factors that are related to the child abuse, and they are so important to discuss about. Now, the first is the psychological or the behavioral disorders or issues, you can say, that starts to popping up at an early childhood age. For example, I'm not saying all the ADHD people or the kids, but yes, some of them tend to actually develop later on into mental health issues, which can ultimately lead to the illegal activities as well. And child abuse is one of the way out to take out their own mental trauma that they would have undergone in their childhood. So the pre-factor. Now, how we actually help the kids to overcome psychological and these behavioral issues is very, very important. The mental health issues, the self-experience trauma, the revengefulness that makes maybe a good child might be developing or growing up in a culprit. So it's so important to work on the pre-factors of that particular childhood era. Second is the familiar. I totally agree with one of the esteemed panel again, that the comfortable and approachable environment has to be there at home, where your kid approaches you for any of the issue. You have to stop. If we have produced children, then we should take a responsibility at least to listen to them. So they, in a world where we are working so high and time is such a big constraint, please spare some time for your own kids. It's not that the childhood abuse is only pre-marked in the low strata of the society. It is so highly, very, very marked in the upper or the high level of strata of the society as well. So I request there has to be continuous campaigning, education, awareness of the parents, of the people in and around in the family about how to be a good parent first. Second, how you can resolve your own conflicts in such a rational manner that your kids are not scared of approaching you. So we need to have a very healthy environment at home so that we are approachable. Third factor, which is very crucial, very, very important, is the social factor. Now, we cannot blame parents, cannot blame kids for both the population, is the experience which has come. We are never prepared for any such situation. Unfortunately, if such situation comes up or pops up, so we are not prepared. Now, how to deal with it? But the society is prepared. You know, it's such a bad thing that the society is prepared how to make sure that this, maybe the trauma can be of transient phase, but they make sure that it becomes elastic in nature and it tends to stay for lifelong. As such, it is going to stay lifelong. So there has to be social grooming of the friend circle, and of the people around, educating them, aware, doing a pre-awareness that such things, whenever they come, you should be supporting people in the legal manner if they can. It is highly appreciable and they must. being a good citizen, it comes as our constitutional right to go ahead and help out the people who are already suffering actually. Now, since we are aware that many of us like to and prefer to work, you can say for many reasons to earn money and many of them. But disqualifying someone who has suffered already, see, these issues can't be there when we consider the society factor, they can't be hidden. So whenever they come in a negative manner to somebody who is approaching for a job, so there has to be good uh, rational approach, intellectual approach from the employer as well to give and offer the job opportunities. They might be struggling initially with the mental health issue after such a trauma. Please accommodate them. That's a request. Train them, and if they are into a job, if they are mentally occupied, then they can definitely get out of it. Uh, this is a very point that we speak very often about is a proactive judiciary. I would say I still have not seen a very proactive judiciary here in our country. So we need to have a proactive judiciary where the actions are there, where the victim gets a instant justification and the judgment of the kind of suffering that particular person has already undergone. So it has to be there. If you see somebody roaming around freely, you are not able to do anything. Mostly these people are the people that kids are aware of. So it's very uh, low morale boosting thing that we must be working on. So yes, I personally feel that the proactive judiciary that we just talk about needs to be worked upon now. The last and the most important point that I feel as a doctor, the post abuse, whenever it happens, the medical examination criteria that is there has to be victim friendly. I personally feel when such cases are there being approached, their clothes are usually torn out and they do have some physical injuries for sure. So I personally feel we only, again, we just talk about there's no practical implementation of the same. So I personally feel the victim should be given a chance to take bath, be given fresh clothes, you know so that makes them more freshen up. Just maybe a transient, uh, there's a change is there for them. So I personally feel the medical examination, whenever is to be done, it has to be victim friendly, rather than making a child sit in the police station or into any of uh, these kind of services that are being provided by many NGOs. So first, I personally feel that they should be allowed to take a bath and examination, and people should come forward and help them out. So this is my first, though there are many points and many of them are covered by Mansi as well. But 2 points that I really want to insist upon. First is experimentation. You know, you can say it is a chemical, sometimes hormones, poor education of the grown-ups. They are not aware of what they are doing, mental health issues, comorbid other factors. There definitely some criminal mindset, illegal mindset that is there in the victim. So they try to experiment. They more of the experimentation is there with the children because they are more vulnerable. And since if they don't get the healthy environment at home where they can go ahead and share, so if this such kind of environment is not there in the home, then it definitely leads to more confidence in the culprit. So my insistence is on the experimentation. When such culprits are experimenting in order to gain the confidence, to go ahead with such activities more frequently, my recommendation to parents, family people, and the neighbors around, please stop, listen, and act. Please stop, give your child some time, listen to him or her, try to at least spend some time what they want to, talk about. Don't interrupt in between. Let them speak. Even if they're crying, please give them a hug, offer them a glass of water, make them sit, give them, comfort as much as you can, physical, mental. So the confidence should be there in the eye of a child. First, to say no to people who are experimenting it. Also, to have such a confidence in parents so that they can actually tell what they're going through. So it's a request to parents to stop whatever they're doing when their kids are wanting to tell them something. Listen, as Mansi said, we all need to be good listeners. We are supposed to be good listeners as parents. So please listen to them. Don't jump onto the conclusion. Listen to the facts that they are saying, try to correlate them, and then it is very important to act. If we are hiding ourselves somewhere, if we are not coming up with the right justification of this really bad abuse, so it is not going to somehow stop the culprit. Rather, it will actually put down the confidence of the child. So it's so important that please stop, listen, and act. Second, I definitely insist on is the examination. Being a doctor, I really feel when such, you know, small age group of kids is there who are so affected with such a physical, social, and psychological trauma, they need to be respected and be treated respectfully in the hospitals or in the other places. You can't let them sit outside on a bench and just letting them wait. It should be a priority. There should be some kind of forensic uh, employability of people who can go to the site, do the search, and whatever evidences they want to collect from that particular area physically or chemical evidences, all this should be done by the forensic department and has to be of utmost priority for sure. And the second thing which is there, which is also part of the examinations, how we are talking to that particular child. We can't be just putting questions and the child is answering. Let the child speak, or just give the child some time. I myself is saying that we need to hurry up the things and come to a conclusion, but that doesn't mean that we are putting so much of pressure on the small child. Give the child some time, and then yes, action, which is always lacking, has to be there. So I insist on experimentation and examination part a lot. My next slide is from darkness to all my first three slides are in black because it's such a trauma that the child undergoes, the family undergoes, you can say for the entire life or for a very good prolonged period. Last slide is colorful because future is in our hands. So please don't push your kids, don't rush them, do this, do that. Future is in our hands. Our kids are our responsibility. The future of the children is also in our hands, being an Indian parent. So we need to work, and children are supposed to enjoy fearless life. So how this we can do? This is to generate a good, healthy atmosphere at home, you know, and be approachable. Have confidence when your child is approaching you for certain discussions. Always have as many meals as you can have. But I always make a compulsion to have at least dinner all together. We all sit together and have dinner, and we listen to them what they are talking. I also tell them, which auntie is not nice as for me. So we talk. So talking is such a crucial part where you can say we can make society aware, we can make parents aware, we can make kids aware, and we can make aware and sure also that they get a good healthy future professionally also, which is very crucial. So this is my take. Thank you so much.
Okay, quite interesting. Thank you. Thanks, Pooja. I would like to, say something that it might be getting some longer, but trust me, it will be very good in the end, because if we are having the same vision to work on the same problem, it's better to, listen to each other and come to a conclusion that we are going in a good direction or not. So it might be getting longer. Some of the people might feel bored, so just bear with us. So thanks, Pooja, for your opinion, and I have noted it down as well, few of the things that I will correlate in the end when I will present. The next, I will request respected Rajshri Jain ji. She is a National Council member of Women Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and also has been an active social influencer. So please, Rajshri ma'am, if you can share your opinion.
Um, Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Mansi, Dr. Pooja, and Anar. Anar is a dear friend, by the way. But yes, what your thoughts about this topic are? are absolutely, gone into my heart. So I'm not going whatever you have covered. Let's, my take on this topic is one thing. Every child deserves to, have good memories of their childhood. I hope you all agree with me with this, and that, they will cherish later in their, future life. And I mean, I'm actually, I'm not able to speak about this topic because, I myself have, when I was very young, I witnessed one of my, known girl was abused by one of my known uncle. And I was, I was like maybe 9 or 10. I don't actually remember. And we were sitting in a car, and the uncle was, touching girls' boobs. Sorry to use these words, but that impacted me like anything. And I was shocked. What is this happening? I should not have seen that thing. So one thing I would like to raise, I would like to add in your saying, we should give our child a safe environment. And we should make our child more stronger, healthier, and they should be allowed to talk about it. I don't know in today's parenting, but my children are grown up. They are above 25. So my only motto was to keep my children safe. And I am an educator. I'm a school teacher also. So only thing I used to tell boys and girls, please, please, please be strong. Speak whatever you want to speak. I'm there for you, because that leave a scar which you can heal with counseling and other things, which again, like Sonu, you raised the topic, we are not very open in the society. But trust me, at least I lived in metro cities only, at least Delhi. We are very vocal about this topic. I lived in Africa for a very long time, and I saw in a shopping mall the same kind of situation. A priest, was again touching a girl inappropriately. I don't know whether that girl must be 10 or 12. She was enjoying that thing or she was against that thing. I don't know. But at least they were not aware. They should not be in such situation. See, in some cultures, it is normalized. Every act is normalized. Like if you will say, suppose Dr. Pooja, you are saying, oh Rajshri, don't talk about it, because you're my doctor, so don't talk about it. So I will normalize in my mind, no, I should not talk about it. And then I will propagate this thing. I will tell my aunts, I will tell my friends, I will tell my sisters, I will tell everyone surrounding, no, this is not a topic we should speak. Like, we don't speak about our personal lives in front of other people. So we normalize that thing, which is not right. In today's world, at least we should speak about it. Unless and until we are speaking about things, then only our children, our surroundings, they will normalize the other extreme, which is right. See, like I'm saying, okay, Pooja, I have gone through this. Then, your immediate reaction should be, okay, Rajshri, let's go to police station. Let's go to some, senior member of the society, a senior member of the family, depending on the situation. So we should not normalize any abuse in our mind, period. Secondly, I was thinking about, this is my own opinion actually, why it happens, why any abuse happens. One thing, Mansi, raised the topic, before marriage or before having children, we are not, educate the parents. But yes, again, to my utter surprise, I was in Ghana and my domestic help, she was pregnant, and third child, of course. And one day she asked me for a leave. Ma'am, I want to go to the church. And she was not in a very, good situation. But she said, no, I have an appointment with the senior members of the church. Then I asked, why, how, why are you going there? Because you should go to your home first, feed your other two children. Then she said, actually, we have regular classes on parenting. Can you believe that? So in olden days, I guess our nannies and daddies, grandmothers or grandfather, I don't remember, they were talking about that thing. But, they used to tell something as a matter of fact. Tomorrow your child will come, you will sleep less. Tomorrow your child will come, you will not have full food, because in between your food, he may cry or she may cry. So those were the small things which our elders used to communicate. But of course, nowadays, single, family, nuclear families, so they are very far off from their, uh, uh, elders, which again is sometimes it is good because you can look after your child very well. There is no distraction. Sometimes it is not very good because no one is there to educate you in a holistic manner. So how it happens, that again is a very big topic of discussion. Maybe the person who is abusing the child has a very low self-esteem, number one. Number two, he might have gone through that, so he may be in a revengeful mode, showing power on the inferior to you, maybe in age, maybe in your status, maybe in social status. Number three, impact, social impact. When people say, oh, this happens. So the other person will think in his mind or in her mind, by the way, I'm taking both the genders in that. In the abuse, the person who is in a powerful position. So he will, normally think, okay, the other person is saying it happens, so I'm entitled to do that. I can do that. It is normalized, but it should not be the case. Sorry to say. And culture. In Afghanistan, a word I came to know is called bachabazi. And abusing small boys for their own pleasure is normalized. I was shocked to see. I have seen some movie on Netflix, small movie. I mean, all the actors were hidden, and but yes, if it is showing on a strong platform like Netflix, so it is happening, and I have read some few things about it. So my point is, if those children, if they will be after in their adulthood, for them it is normalized. Don't you think so? So we should educate them. Number one, it is not a good thing to do. Number two, please, if in your time it happened, please don't feel dirty, don't feel powerless, don't feel worthless. So even if it happened, then again, you are the same person. You can erase memories also over the period of time, maybe, or with the self-help groups, or maybe the government policies. Staunch government policies are, should be made, like programs in schools to educate the children. Okay, you should not, accept inappropriate behavior of other person. So my take on child abuse or prevention of child abuse is that I want to cut it short because, maybe Sonu must be, seeing the watch, already, ma'am is telling, I'm telling my own experience, because as a teacher,
No, ma'am. Actually, it's nothing from my side. I can sit till 9 or 10 because
okay,
it's not a problem for
right,
me. But might be for other people. You can go ahead. It's better
yeah,
that we can
and
hear
and
more
and
from.
yeah, I would like to say violence. If I'm in a bad mood, I should not teach my children, uh, at least at that moment. I should take a time out. I should drink some water or have my mood corrected. Then I should talk to my children. So this thing we need to propagate. We need to spread like in awareness programs. And last but not the least, give them a stable and safe environment, because we all are educated. We are talking about artificial intelligence. We are talking about going to Mars and other things, and remote cars and battery cars, what not. But only thing, we should invest in our future generation. That is my take on child abuse. Thank you all for giving me this platform.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, to have an elite speaker like you on our on our session. So it was wonderful, ma'am, and we hope we again speak in the next webinar as well with all of you. So thank you so much. The next is Naomi Handuneti. She is from Sri Lanka, and she is an award-winning entrepreneur, speaker, a blogger, and as well a doctoral candidate. And she is a global goodwill ambassador as well, and a mentor at Women Empowered Global. And prior to her entrepreneurship journey, she has worked with some of the biggest organizations in Sri Lanka, like MAS Holdings, Sri Lankan Airlines, and EW Information Systems. So, Naomi, thanks for showing up to this session. Please share your opinion.
Thank you, McMarvin. Hi, good evening, everybody. So I'm from Sri Lanka. So like Sonu introduced me already. So I'm Naomi Handuneti, award-winning entrepreneur, marketing specialist, doctoral candidate, fitness enthusiast, speaker, blogger, global goodwill ambassador, and mentor at Women Empowered Global. Actually, my talk is going to be a little different to what all the other ladies spoke about. Thank you very much for all the feedback. So I should also say that I'm also a wife and a mother to two daughters who are aged 16 and 10. If you see the work that I do, I'm a busy mother, also promoting women empowerment as well. Therefore, my talk is going to be more focused on women as primary caregivers and understanding that if we can put an effort on addressing some of the issues that women caregivers go through, and we might be able to reduce at least a small percentage of child abuse. So I think the speakers already touched based upon what child abuse is. Also, let me quickly go through the slides. What child abuse or child maltreatment is: physical, sexual, and or psychological maltreatment or neglect of a child or children. And this significantly says, especially by a parent or a caregiver. Child abuse also may include any act of failure to act by a parent or a caregiver that results in actual or potential harm to a child and can occur in a child's home or in the organizations, schools, or communities the child interacts with. So let me take you all through some published statistics on child abuse from US. It's estimated that at least 1 in 7 children in the US has experienced child abuse and or neglect in the past year. Neglect is the most common form of child abuse, followed by physical abuse, sexual abuse, and psychological abuse. In 2018, about 16% of children who were abused experienced more than one kind of maltreatment. Boys and girls experience similar rates of child abuse. So 48.6% boys and 51% respectively. Rates of child abuse and neglect are 5 times higher for children in families with low socio-economic status compared to children in families with higher socio-economic status. Children younger than 1 year old are the most vulnerable. In 2018, 76% of child abuse perpetrators were a parent to their victim. So some results of child abuse. Perpetrating or being a victim of violence, depression, smoking, obesity, high-risk sexual behavior, unintended pregnancies, alcohol or drug misuse. So these are the results of a child being abused in their early stages of life. Further, I think some of the other ladies addressed these facts as well. So I would like to ask, who is responsible for child abuse? If child abuse is done by the primary caregivers, so it's us, isn't it? So let us, Sonu, can you share my screen? I would like to play a video. Just take 2 minutes.
You can share it. I think the
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. So I'm just going to share my screen for 2 minutes, and let's go through this video, which is very sad. Due to COVID for the past 1 year, statistics from US, how women at work who lost their jobs for the simple reason of caregiving, and how depression is affecting their lifestyle. Can you see my screen?
No, we can't see it. Have you shared it?
Okay, just a minute. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Right. So why I chose to show this video is there is a buzzword going around. There's women empowerment. We talk about women at work. So what happens is are we as women truly ready to let moms join the workforce? Does the legal framework protect the woman? Do we understand how the primary caregiver's mental state affects raising healthy children? So these are some of the I think key factors that we should look at when we talk about women empowerment. We are saying, come to work. There's so much of issues that women go through trying to get back to work. So I'm trying to address some of the issues here. The top issues women face as primary caregivers. That's balancing responsibilities. For example, let's say there's online schooling. So a teacher typically will know a child whose mom's a housewife and a working mom's child, simply because the schoolwork is not done, the homework is not completed. So the pressure of all the responsibilities, cooking, there's cleaning, so she has to work, she has to do the kids' homework. So all of the balancing responsibilities can affect a woman's mental health. Then fear of failure, then inadequate support systems, gender inequality, limited knowledge, low self-confidence, timidity, prioritizing. If you take a woman, she prioritizes herself throughout their lives. As a caregiver, she's a wife, she's a mother, she has to look after the in-laws. Also not knowing that empowerment is a possibility. Also not looking after their mental and physical health. So all of these put together, I think a woman as a primary caregiver, also responsible predominantly for a child's health and well-being, is affected. And the WHO characteristics of a parent or caregiver that may increase the risk of child abuse. Difficulty bonding with a newborn. I think ladies here addressed this already, where now if you look at those days, maybe 20-30 years ago, if you take typically Sri Lanka, we lived with our grandparents, we lived with our mother and father, so that we were taught how to raise a child, or there's always some caregiver. But with the financial difficulties, now most couples live alone. So women as mothers tend to have difficulties bonding with the newborn, and it can be due to postnatal depression, which as a country we do not speak about. Then not nurturing the child properly, having been maltreated or abused themselves as children, or coming from a broken abusive family. So these kids are not rehabilitated. They come and they expect the same thing that is happening. They tend to do the same thing to their children. Lacking awareness of child development or having unrealistic expectations. So this can be also the education system in terms of the studies. You have to get A's, you have to get above 95 marks. So unrealistic expectations from the child. Misusing alcohol or drugs, including during pregnancy. Having low self-esteem of the caregivers. Suffering from poor impulse control. Having a mental or neurological disorder. Being involved in criminal activity. And experiencing financial difficulties. So I think women have to work today to support the family expenses. The cost of living is increasing day by day. So you see an increased amount of women leaving their children with a caregiver, somebody known, and the children are at home alone most of the time, or with somebody male. So these decisions that we as parents take can affect our children. So there are some of the tips that there are to overcome issues women face as primary caregivers in the Asian society. Defining our own successes. we personally and as a family to reduce stress. Then prioritizing your workload to reduce depression and the level of stress. Building activities to develop your self-confidence. Focus on mental and physical health. Promote reading, promote relaxation, promote less screen time, things like that. And promote exercising, which in return reduces your stress levels. Support groups to discuss issues, like that church incident that was mentioned, where you have a support system, a group where you discuss, it can be a parenthood, it can be stress related to stress, it can be related to depression, or it can be something that related to your abusive nature that you can speak to a group about. Then requesting extra support from schools to help kids of working moms. So this is something actually I have started addressing. The unrealistic expectations from the school teachers themselves, from the children. I think it should stop. There should be extra support from the schools given to working moms so that they have a bit of free time to work on themselves, probably reading or just to relax, and not to do a 8 to 9 to 10 hour job. You come home, you cook, clean, and then do your kids' homework. You are just going to burn out. Also, I would like to mention how can the corporate and SME sector help women face sectors help women as primary caregivers in the Asian society. This is also something that I'm working on at the moment. Understanding and accept the dual role women play, juggling work and family. So I think the work environment, be it a corporate or SME sector, the work environment should be supportive towards mothers, understanding that they need flexi hours and they need working from home options where they can balance work as well as be there for their children, to make time to speak to their children, to have that bond of the mother and the child, rather than a transactional busy schedule that the parents run. So these things have to be promoted. Then harassment-free work environment. Also policies to be adopted to encourage mothers to come back to work. We talk about a lot of women empowerment. We talk about come back to work, we need you, this, that. But what are the policies? What are the legal frameworks for moms? How safe are the kids? When the mother and the father is at work, how safe are the kids? Where are the kids going to stay? Are they going to stay alone, or there's a creche, or there's a daycare? So what are the legal frameworks? So these things needs to be addressed. Then reward successful kids of these mothers. So if the corporate and the SME sectors can reward successful kids for their social skills, for their sports, for their education skills, I think the mothers will be more at ease and encouraged to get back to work. So these are the things that I like to address in my speech. If there's if there are any questions, or later on if I want to connect, I'm on LinkedIn as Naomi Handunetti. Please connect with me. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody will get connect with each other after this session, because we have seen that in the past. After a session, everybody get connect with each other on LinkedIn or wherever possible. So thank you. Insights on the several aspects that how we can solve the problem. The next, I know Kanan, you might be running out of time, so please go ahead. Let me introduce Kanan to all of you. Kanan is the co-founder of Kanan's Kiddo Quest, and that works towards creating awareness about early childhood. And she has vast experience in academic operations, managers, and has worked with brands like Podar and Eurokid. So please go ahead and share your opinion. And we are sorry for the inconvenience if you are running out of time.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Sonu. Thank you so much to all the speakers to share such insightful facts that we deny and we don't ignore, like staying in the same society. right? Well, thank you so much, Mr. Sonu, for taking an initiative of educating people around the world. I would say that this is most neglected topic when it comes to child abuse. Rather, I would like to use this term as child safety, being an early childhood educator. It feels proud to see the platform McMarvin, co-founded by Mr. Sonu, is raising society well-being with such prevention talks on social media platform, which is nowadays highly used by people around the world to stay connected with each other. Each day, the safety and the well-being of some children across the nation are threatened by child abuse and neglected. Intervening effectively in the lives of these children and their families is not the sole responsibility of any single agency or professional groups, but rather it should be a shared community concern. According to National Crime Record Bureau, 1 in 4 families don't even come forward to report such cases, and the cases don't seem to stop. So, is there a fully functioning law that can help a child who has been abused? And in 2012, government has introduced Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. Though in every country, POCSO Act is being introduced, but very less people know about it. It's an act to protect children from violence. Otherwise, any kind of child abuse which was happening in the world was being dealt by IPC, that is Indian Penal Code. Of course, the new law introduced was a great step by the government. The law states that mandatory reporting needs to be done by everyone. But is it really happening in the world? Are we following that laws, or are we forgetting, or are we ignoring that POCSO rule which was being introduced in 2012? All children have the right to live in an environment which is free from abuse and neglect. 95% of child safety is preventable by education. It is better way to protect and nurture our children. And my answer would be, we need to revitalize our community involvement so that everyone plays a part in raising them. This will enable us to build strong children rather than mending broken adults. Children are precious. They are part of us. They are present. They are future. And so we share a collective responsibility for nurturing them and building them into good citizens. And child abuse is an experience during childhood or adolescence that involves inappropriate sexual attention from another person. And it is not solely restricted to the physical contact, but also emotional and neglect. This creates an impact upon the children on their health. Secondly, their well-being, which is impacted. Third, children competence and their confidence, which is again impacted. It also affects difficulty in forming a long-term relationship. Depression links to a failure of immune system and to increase an illness. Few signs of child abuse are fear of a parent or fear of the society, withdraw or get isolated over overly complain, and etc. If I consider the changes that have taken place in relation to parenting, parents also need to take or contribute to stop cycle of violence and prevent new cycles of child safety. Adults require specific skills to navigate today's complex society successfully, but many daily living skills are never taught to them as they are growing up. Parents and other involved adults may teach these skills directly by examples. Or maybe I remember in my childhood, it was the wonderful experience when I, being a convent school child, I was being taught at the early age. I would say I was at the age of 8 years, but I guess now this is not a correct age to introduce. I guess that would the age to introduce this child abuse activities, or maybe the precaution which the child needs to take care during the right from the early age, has to be introduced in the school at the very start of the child when is being introduced to a school, or when the child is being taken out for some activities. But now I would say I'm very proud to be an early childhood educator, where I have seen many schools have taken efforts to integrate the lessons, and they have been teaching the skills in the curriculum, which will ease the transition into adulthood. Also, many welfare groups tie up with the schools to educate children on the GTBT, that is good touch and the bad touch, in child-friendly language. Children must be taught how to cope with a crisis. If situation occurs as an adult, even we should have knowledge for treating or talking to a child. Maybe when I talk about introducing the child abuse, or maybe when we are educating a child about the safety of this such in crisis, maybe the school takes an initiative or conducts an activity through a storytelling, or maybe where the teacher can use some kind of puppets and do some activities throughout, so that the child is understood at correct age with correct age appropriate content. Cooperative efforts between schools and the community can be effective means of preventing child safety. Being a parent, relative, neighbors, or as a citizen, no one wants such crisis to happen, but situation creates, and we start harming a child unknowingly. So protect children. Learn the facts. If we don't understand child safety, abuse, we cannot end it. It is highly likely that a child who has been or is being abused. Start educating children right from an early age and talk to them about the GTBT, that is good touch and bad touch, right from the early age. Minimize the opportunity. So maybe a safe environment can help reduce the risk or risk for abuse. Maybe more than 80% of abuse cases occur in isolated one or one-to-one situation. Talk to a child being a parent. Listen to them. Give them an opportunity to come to you and approach you anytime they wish to. They don't have to take a prior appointments, or they don't have to wait for their turn to come and talk to you parents. I would suggest talk to them. Talking openly breaks down barriers and reduces stigma. By talking openly about our bodies and boundaries, we can encourage children to share, use examples with situation and people. I would say that's very difficult part when it comes to parents to educate a child about this safety. But with few examples and few conversation with the child, I'm very sure that you and the child can understand what the parents want to pass out with the message. Recognize the signs. If the signs of abuse aren't always obvious, but are often there, emotional behavior changes are often the most common signs which parent can understand, or the school people can understand, or a common man can understand about a person. React to a responsibility. It's our responsibility to react appropriately to suspicion, disclosure, or discovery of abuse. Teach children when to say no. Do not ignore or neglect a child who has suffered from such crisis. Instead, hire a counselor or a psychologist who can support the child and give a correct treatment in that case. A child goes to a traumatic experience when the child suffers from such kind of crisis. And in that incidents, as suggested by experts, their scars are often deepened when they go for the medical examination. It is usually supposed to be accompanied by a parent, or probably by a psychologist or a counselor, so that the child is able to speak freely. However, in practice, it is not being followed. it's been like seen, and we as in we as a people, I mean, in public also, we are being seeing on the news channel and all. It's not been at all followed. There should be a separate authorities where such incidents needs to be recorded along with special hospitals for such crisis. Tell me one thing: any place or any city or any country has such kind of a special hospitals or special police station to maybe register this such kind of crisis? No, nor the police station nor the hospital doctors are being trained how to educate or I mean how to handle such kind of crisis. And I think this is the correct time McMarvin platform is going to really raise the voice about conducting such kind of trainings for these peoples who are going to help the community around the world. When I see civil hospitals in every city, there can be really a special doctors who can be appointed and then they can be carrying such kind of crisis very smoothly, so that the child is not being hampered or the child is not being tortured about the case, about the crisis. So example of many such cases, I would say there are schools also who is being suffering from such kind of crisis, and they try to hide the cases just because of the reputation. And the same goes with the parents, because the parents think that our family reputation would spoil. Let's not raise the voice. And then the child is also being asked to keep shut. That's not, we are not responsible. We would not tell that. We would not ignore that. Or we are responsible for such crisis. No, we are not responsible. It happened with your child or it happened in the school. So it's a responsibility of every citizen to take care and take a step forward and raise a voice against it. So whereas as per the law, disclosure of the victim directly is not allowed. The identity should not be open up. Whereas we see on the news channels, newspapers, the media releases in such a way that the victim is being tortured. The victim thinks that there is no life in further, like to live a life. And then comes a decision to take a suicide step, which is again a big, big no for a person who suffers from this crisis. People, awake, get awake and come forward to speak. Think before enrolling your child to a daycare also. I have seen a parent, I would not call it as a happy parenting, though you are not working in a school, or I mean, though you are not working as you are not a working parent, but still I feel that you are not entitled to put your child to a daycare or hire a caregiver or caretaker who can come to your house and take care of your child. Before that, train to the person whom you are hiring and make the person understand about all the requirements and keep a keen watch on the caretakers. Let's take a pledge to use this pinwheel. Now, when Mr. Sonu has created a band poster, there I saw a small pinwheel, which really highlighted in that poster where I was with a question mark. That's what it is all about. And I really studied about that pinwheel. And that pinwheel is indicating that the child should not, I mean, right from nostalgic, like we as in childhood were using that the pinwheel to play, right? And that is symbolizing as in, it's a national child abuse prevention month that is the April month, where the importance of families and communities working together to strengthen the families to prevent the child abuse and neglect. Such pinwheels are used to highlight, I mean, they are being used for recognized as a national, I mean, a small token which has been used overall in the abroad as highlighting that pinwheel to a childhood. So we feel as in educators, we all as in citizens, we all think that such kind of crisis to be ignored. And I believe that pinwheel where we used to take it and we used to run all the way. It used to blow out through the help of the wind and all. We want that kind of childhood of each and every child in the society. So I would not take much more again time. Let's take a pledge to use this pinwheel or a small banner to remind us of the childhood that most of us had, and also remind us of the childhood that many do not wish to remember. So let's pray together that the children are brave enough to tell someone, or maybe that the children remain strong and hopeful through the journey, that the children will be rescued, that the children are placed with caring people, that their bodies and minds will be healed, that the mind will be again taken care, where mindful practices will be done, like as many speakers earlier has mentioned about the emotional intelligence also. They may find new trust, new hope, and new peace for these rescues and heroes. So donate a pinwheel, I would suggest, in the month of April. Take a oath or take a pledge to donate a pinwheel to Child Right Department to create awareness about Child Abuse Month, Prevention Month. So I would like to thank Mr. Sonu and McMarvin platform again for giving me such a wonderful platform to share my views on the child abuse prevention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kanan. It was very powerful, and definitely it's pleasure of ours to have a wonderful panel like all of you. Thanks for your opinion, and we have noted it. And going forward in future, definitely, because we are going to launch our solution next month. That is also a National Prevention Child Abuse Month, as you mentioned. So definitely we'll meet again. So thank you so much. And our last speaker for today is from Nigeria, Asamao Benjis Leo. She is an ambassador of peace and humanity from Nigeria, and she is a gender advocate and a women's rights activist, and also founded Sane Game, an NGO that works towards the achievement of peace, gender equality, and sustainable development. So, Asamao, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone watching us. And I thank McMarvin for the opportunity to be part of the panel, to be speaking about the issue of child abuse. For us in Nigeria, it's a very pertinent and timely topic to talk about child abuse. And I have sat down here to listen attentively and with keen interest on how my sisters from the Global South also have talked extensively about their experiences and what their perspectives are about child abuse. And permit me, and in the course of most of their presentation, I have heard so much about child abuse that happens within the context of our safe spaces, which usually is from the home front. But permit me to today talk a little about those vulnerable group of children that are not even fortunate or opportune to be within the safe spaces of their homes, with families, with loved ones. In Nigeria, there's a statistics by the UN that 13 million children are out of school, and which 50% of these are girls. So you can see how huge the number of vulnerable children are on the streets of Nigeria. So before I start to talk about children in the comfort of homes, the issue of emotional intelligence, the issue of good upbringing, let me also digress to talk about these vulnerable children that don't even have access to such privileges. Like, given the prevalence of child abuse, it should be everyone's business and everybody's problem to turn what child abuse is in our society, especially in Nigeria, into what we call a workable solution. They've always been abused. Most of us grew up to see these things happening here and there. It is something that when you go out of the street of Nigeria, you will see it everywhere. It's not something that is hidden. It is most pronounced, especially with the level of poverty that is rising by the day. So it's important that we learn to address child abuse, not just in Nigeria, Africa, but the world at large. Most child abuse occur within the family, and majority of children now report having been victims of some form of abuses. Although it is certain true that children abuse also occurs outside the family. especially in schools for children that go to school, and even in religious settings. In Africa, in Nigeria, we have cases of many young children that were abused within religious settings. We have had some of them that have been abused in state institutions and even in our communities. So abuse has no barrier. It can happen both within the private space and in the public space. Most often, children are abused by someone they know and by someone they see every day, especially those that are most close to them. The impact of child abuse on children can be long-term and damaging, and those who were abused as children are far more likely to become offenders themselves. And that is why the issue is important that we begin to address, because we discover that there's a circle of perpetrators. Once they have suffered abuse, ultimately within their lifetime, they also become abusers. So how do we discourage that act? It is by proper enlightenment, by provision of psychosocial support services, by counseling. A lot have been said about the issues of the mind with regards to child abuse. So it is very important we look at that aspect too. And it takes, for us in Africa, there's an adage that says it takes a village to raise a child. So when you give birth to a child, you are not just a child to your parents, you are not just a child to your family, you are a child of your neighbor, you are a child to the community. So when you are found misbehaving, I remember so many times when we are playing outside in those days in the villages, you will discover the parent will come out. They don't care whose child you are. Once you misbehave, they have a way of handling you. And you know, when an African parent handles a child, it is something that you wouldn't want to see. They will beat you to stupor. And that in itself has changed a whole generation. Our generation, we are more, groomed. We are more obedient. We are more, in our approach to life, we have a very, open and liberal worldview because of the kind of collective and homogeneous upbringing we got from our own villages and our families. And it is important that we know that we all have a role to play in ensuring that children are safe from violence, children are safe from abuse, children are safe from molestation and every form of harassment. There has to be what we call the sharing of responsibilities. For us in Africa, there is shared responsibility in the protection of children. Why this generation is missing it and why we have high cases of child abuse is because there is no longer that fabric that holds the society together, that makes the African society to have this responsibility of to share parental caring and protection. It's no longer there. You see families have become more autonomous. Families have become more segregated. And so therefore you see a child misbehaving, you see violence occurring, and all you know is that as long as it's not my child, it's not related to me, I don't know the child, I don't care. But child abuse goes beyond families. It goes beyond people. It is, as members of the human race, we should all be concerned when we see this happening, and we should all be solutions to it, not also forming part of the problem. And we should also help to ensure that all children are safe from harm and be adequately taken care of. Child abuse and neglect can happen to any child. But basically, there are some specific vulnerable groups that are targeted, and their own issue is exacerbated, some because of disability, and then children without the care, like I said earlier, without parental care and protection from family, and especially the notion of child domestic workers. They are highly at risk of maltreatment. And this maltreatment and violence can include sexual abuse, child labor, trafficking, bullying, emotional violence, even against those kind of children. And like I said, that is why I want us to put a searchlight beyond the safe spaces of families to look at this vulnerable group of children. I remember a speaker said she lived in Africa, and she even gave an instance of a domestic worker. So it's it's very common that we find domestic workers working with us, and most people abuse these children that are supposed to be under our care. So it is important that we look at these factors. How do we assist children that have no care? Whether care from the government, care from their families, if we see them around, what are those things, the mechanisms that should be put in place to protect the rights of these vulnerable children? Parents who place their children as domestic workers in the households of strangers are naively convinced that the promise of a better life and education. You know, it's very prevalent. I don't know how it is in India and other Asian countries, but in Africa, you can find a parent, maybe due to poverty, maybe due to lack of education, they hand over their children, their word to strangers they know nothing about. And they said, okay, this is going to be a source of livelihood and a source of support to the family. Forgetting that it is a ticket for a life of torment and abuse to the child that has been given out. So what are those things? I'm not saying that people should not have domestic help, but also there's some, you know, there has to be what we call maybe a kind of a benchmark for what are those criteria, what are those legal frameworks that should be. I don't know of countries. Nigeria does not have any law that protect domestic servitude. I don't know about Asia and other parts of the country, of the world, but it is important we also begin to look at the impact of abuse on this kind of people and what are those legal and institutional frameworks that can be put in place to safeguard their rights and also protect them from violence. We fail to realize that the isolation of child domestic workers from their own families and community make them to lack self-esteem, and it further causes a high rate of what we call illiteracy and possibly child pregnancy due to sexual abuse. And somehow, some of them can even lead to prostitution. So we can see the negative social consequences that affect children that are being given out as what domestic helps or servitude, for domestic services purposes rather. Another alarming trend has to do with the increase of the number of children that are sold by their biological parent. I don't know, like, you know, when I'm talking about the context of Nigeria, we have had cases recently of people, of young women giving birth and then selling the children to people or prospective foster parents because they don't have money to take care of themselves. So it is not that it is accidentally done, but it is done intentionally because they need the money. So they get pregnant, they give birth, they make arrangements not with the legal framework of surrogacy, but they do that in order to make a living. And in the process, we've had stories of these children either being killed for ritual purposes, or these children are being used and abused as sexual slaves when they grow up, or some of them are even put, you know, through a whole lot of violence and intimidation and harassment that it impacts on their lives forever, maybe through the form of lifetime disability or even mental and psychosocial health implications at the long run. So protecting children from commercial, also sex exploitation is important. I live in the northern part of Nigeria, and northern part of Nigeria is where I come from. It's characterized by a whole lot of violence and conflict right now. And, you know, in the course of my work, I had the opportunity to visit one of the communities where the internally displaced people are. And I discovered that there's a place they call Pampas. You know, Pampas, the one the children use, diapers. So there's a company called Pampas that makes diapers in Nigeria. And they named that location, that particular area, Pampas, because you can hardly find a girl of 16. You find girls between the ages of 10 to the ages of 14 prostituting. And these are children that are supposed to be safeguarded from all this exposure to sexual abuse. But because the conflict situation had made them leave their own homes to where they are, they suffer all this kind of exploitation. You see men old enough to be their grandparents coming to require for sex from them, and they pay them stipends. So let us look also at the issue of the public health implications of such practices, not just because the child is going to be exposed to just sexual, gratification of whatever, but looking at the issue of the public health concerns. These young girls will be exposed to sexual reproductive issues like early pregnancy, vesicovaginal fistula, and other sexually transmitted diseases like HIV, hepatitis, and the rest of them. So how do we safeguard this group of vulnerable young girls? And then the issue of child labor. In the north, you go all around, you will see there's this system they call Almajiri system. You see young children as young as 2 years, 3 years on the street begging for alms, begging for help. And these things are condoned sometimes by the community, by the society, in the name of culture and religion. And sometimes you see children being trafficked from one location to the other under the guise of help. But at the end of the day, we know that it's about human trafficking. And some of these children end up becoming what? Trafficked for what? Organ harvesting. And so they lose their life just because the parents need certain leverages, or to just, we have a high population in some parts of Nigeria. And some feel, okay, by the time they release these children to the street, it minimizes the level of hardship economically on them. So the question again we ask is that why do we need to have more children that we can cater for? So it is also important. We shouldn't give birth to children we do not have the capacity to also care for. It is very, very important. And then in an attempt to trigger action and create a safer society for children, it is important we work to create awareness. And awareness creation is very important. Sensitization is important. Advocacy is important with regards to child abuse. Because some people actually truly do this under, with ignorance. They don't really know the impact. They don't know the implication. They just do it as just part of it. You give birth to children without even knowing that there is a provision for family planning. There's a provision you can go and actually decide the number of children you can afford to cater for. Some don't even know that, when I give my child out as a domestic worker, there's every possibility they will abuse that child. Some don't even understand that, some people that they trust that these are the ones to take care of our children are actually the ones, the perpetrators of the violence against these children. And then the issue of state institutions, what are those mechanisms put in place for state institutions to also safeguard the lives of this vulnerable population? So these are things that we begin to enter. It's important we begin to look at it from the north-south divide, to begin to interrogate how is it peculiar in Africa, and why is it having, to have a prolonged effect on the life of children in Africa. Then juxtapose it with Asia, and maybe also another case study or a kind of comparative analysis from other Western countries. When you look at this triangular approach, you will discover that it boils down to awareness. In the West, there is huge awareness that, okay, you have the right to plan your family. In Africa, some people don't have that knowledge. They don't have that kind of privilege to understand certain requirements from parental side. So it is important we also, in carrying out research, we understand the role that awareness and understanding plays in terms of discouraging or minimizing or mitigating violence against children. And therefore, the issue of community, involving the community to also mitigate violence against children is important. Communities play a vital role, because when the community members are aware, especially the community influencers, like we have chiefs, community chiefs, we have, those are traditional religious leaders, youth leaders, women groups. There's need to conscientize them, because we have some harmful traditional practices that are enablers to this kind of violence against children. And so how do we involve the community to work together with the community to ensure that children are well protected? Child abuse, what are those preventive measures? The most effective way of protecting children from all forms of abuse and exploitation, from my own perspective, is prevention. Like there's a popular adage that says, prevention is better than cure. So it is generally acknowledged that it is better to take steps to prevent child abuse, neglect, exploitation, than to deal with its consequences. It is massive, it is huge. The consequences of abuse are huge. So if we can put preventive measures on ground, it will help in curbing these menace than for us to think of salvaging the situation when the harm has been done. Child safety and prevention activities include teaching children to protect themselves, and then recognize a disease, to recognize those signs. We call them the red alert. These children should be taught, what does it take that when somebody approaches me? And a whole lot of the presenters have talked about these signs, these triggers to child abuse. And then we should teach them that if these things are perpetrated, they have the right to report. The culture of silence is another thing I have observed. Children are not taught to speak out. They are not taught to open up. And so, this issue of fear further makes them to keep silent. And when silence becomes the norm, violence becomes inevitable. Working with families, like I said earlier, to stop the root causes of child abuse and neglect is also important. We take the message to the grassroots. We work with parents to teach them, to advocate that it is not right for parents to abandon their children or also be the perpetrators of such violence against their own children. Sorry, when I was listening to one of the presenters, she talked about even parents themselves being perpetrators of violence, and I agree. It is not far from the truth. I agree. Parents can also be what? Perpetrators of such. And then strengthening parental skills. I love this because many people have talked about what are those skills that are required for parents to also be part of what the vanguard to speak out and to also help other people. And this can be done through promoting positive parenting practices, through parenting education, as well as crisis intervention and counseling. Most parents don't even know how to handle crisis within the home. So how, if there's a crisis, especially with adolescents, when they are growing, how do you resolve this crisis within the family with adolescents? Some parents can get overwhelmed and they will not be able to do that. So it's important we also look at that aspect. Then providing training for childcare providers, health workers, teachers, the police, local authorities, community leaders, to strengthen their knowledge and skills to identify and respond to child protection risks, including developing referral pathways of affected children and where they could access appropriate care and rehabilitation services. Then organizing activities directed at changing the attitude and social behaviors of parents, like we mentioned in other subsequent presentations, for also this attitudinal change and social norms change will be targeted to parents, it will be targeted at caregivers, it will be targeted at teachers, religious leaders, and also other behavioral change communication campaigns can be disseminated from the top at the, let's say, the national level down to the local or grassroots levels. Then tackling deeply entrenched assumptions that child domestic work is an acceptable and expected practice for girls. You know, that is also a very contentious and controversial issue, because some people will say, oh, when you give out those house helps, what you are helping their own family, because that's how the families depend on the income they make to help their families. But again, we forget the impact also on the child. So do we sacrifice the child on the altar of poverty eradication and the future just because we want to sustain their family? That is also another question I think that also requires an urgent response or intervention. Then promoting awareness about prevalence of child abuse and educating the public about the horrors of child abuse. Many people, like I said, it's ignorance that make people to do what they do. So it is important we create that awareness. And since such awareness can carry many forms through televisions, radio, social media, other ways that we can talk about these issues, like even this discussion we are having through research, through so many avenues, so that the message can go around, people can begin to understand, so that there will be a shift in the mindset, so that people can begin to create, or all of us can begin to create a generation that tomorrow people and young people will live to be happy, to be productive, and also to have a better and successful future for themselves. Then the child abuse is often a taboo. You know, I can relate with this because I come from a very conservative society. So it is even a taboo for sometimes for us to discuss child abuse, because some people, some of our leaders look at it as if it's discipline. You are trying to inculcate a culture of discipline in the child. So when you see somebody perpetrating evil against the child, you say, no, leave the person. He's an elder. He knows he's trying to make the child to be, having the right mindset for the child to acquire the basic life skills for the future. So he needs a whole lot of discipline. But there's a level to which discipline can evolve from being just discipline to abuse. And so we should also learn to checkmate that. Children need advocates. And today we are advocates of children. And that is why I'm happy with McMarvin because this is the avenue we need to be advocate for children, to speak out for children, to also support and defend children, to be agents of change for children. Individuals like us who are willing to take simple and ordinary actions that will prevent violence against children before it happens. And then how do we report? For us in Nigeria, there are so many reporting patterns and pathways that a child can report this abuse and neglect or exploitation. And it is important that wherever we find ourselves, communities begin to understand that there are pathways, there are institutions, there are bodies, governmental bodies and non-governmental bodies that have the statutory mandate and responsibility for handling child abuses. And so the community should know, and the children themselves should know, so that when there are cases like that, they can be bold enough, and with this awareness, with informed decisions, they can walk onto these service providers and they will get help. For us in Nigeria, we have the Child Protection Network, which we have them almost in every local government, or we call it the county. So other people call it county. In Nigeria, we call it local government. We have child protection networks in all these local government. And if the families are aware that this child protection network are there, they can approach them to assist with child protection issues. And then we have child protection unit in all the ministries of women affairs and gender affairs. And so they should liaise with them and also report cases. Then we have the gender unit. The police command from the headquarters to the local level have what they call the gender unit. And there are women, police women that have been assigned to these gender decks so that they could take up issues of family issues or child abuse issues to tackle them. And then we have the juvenile welfare centers in all the states. So for me, what are the solutions? Even though in the course of my presentations, I've highlighted some of the solutions, but here is for me to be specific, is the issue of education, both formal and non-formal education. At least children should be given the universal basic education. That is from age 4, at least let them be able to finish basic primary school, which is also a requirement and a fundamental right for a child to acquire basic education. Then poverty eradication is important, both at the side of government and at the side of other partners, because most of these issues of abuse, the foundation of it is from poverty. Because when parents are poor, there's nothing you will tell them. When you tell them abuse, they look at you, they will laugh, because you will tell you don't understand what we're going through. So if the government can work together with other partners to come up and formulate policies or come up with project activities, programs that will address poverty, especially at the community levels, it will go a long way to stop parents from exposing their children to abuse. Then the government and other individuals, corporate organizations and non-governmental organizations should liaise together, partner to be shelters, to build orphanages, whereby these vulnerable children that have nowhere to go can be accommodated and be adequately taken care of. The responsibility of the care for every citizen lies with the government. So this, I'm calling up specifically first to the government to provide such services before other partners, NGOs, development partners can also come on board. For us, adoption is also important, but some government, especially in Nigeria, the process of adopting a child is very, very hard. So most people, there are children that are there that need help that can be adopted, but the legal procedure for adoption has been made so strict that many people cannot afford to go through that rigorous processes. And so adoption procedures should be made simplified so the parent, foster parent, individuals can be able to adopt these street children and these vulnerable children. The legal assistance, when children that are vulnerable, street children, orphans and vulnerable children need help, let there be legal assistance through maybe the Legal Aid Council, through the Human Rights organization, which is National Human Rights Commission, and other Federation of Female Lawyers, and other legal instruments that can be put in place to assist with the legal or pro bono legal services for children that have abuse cases. And then there should be legal and institutional or policy framework that should be put in place. For instance, in Nigeria, we have what we call the Child Rights Act has been domesticated in Nigeria, has been ratified rather in Nigeria, but only 2 states in northern Nigeria have domesticated it in their own state, while the entire southern Nigeria have already adopted and domesticated it. Because of the legal, the religious and the cultural context of the northern Nigeria, is making it hard for the region to adopt this Child Rights Act. And without it, children cannot be able to access justice and also enjoy some basic fundamental human rights. So it is important that we have this legal and policy framework on ground for children to be access justice and also live a life free from violence and harassment. In conclusion, I say it is time for everyone to step forward and address this terrible pandemic called child abuse. Every child deserves nothing less than safety and security, and our firm commitment to protect them from mental, physical, sexual, and emotional abuse should be our major priority. And I will end by a quote from Haile Selassie I, the Ethiopian emperor, that said, throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who would have known better, the silence of the voices of justice when it mattered most, that has made it possible for evil to thrive. Thank you for listening.